being a Northwest guy is you're raised in a batting cage, you're raised in an indoor facility, you're taking ground balls off of, you know how to work in limited space.
Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, and I know I'm biased because I'm a Northwest guy, but I will take a Northwest guy over somebody from another area any day of the week because I just think they're tougher. I just think they're tougher guys.
I think that's one of the best things about baseball is it still is a way that you can really develop toughness and develop loyalty and all those kinds of things that we want out of young men in particular.
Welcome to the Pacific Northwest Fungo Banter Podcast, where we highlight all of the great coaches of the Pacific Northwest. Now, here are your hosts, Eric Sorensen, Jason Jarrett, and Kelly Gow.
Hey, Fungo Banter fans. Welcome back to another episode of your Pacific Northwest Fungo Banter Podcast. Eric Sorensen here, going to be joined by Jason and Kelly, as always, as we bring you another episode of your Pacific Northwest Fungo Banter Podcast, highlighting all the coaches from the Pacific Northwest. Our new episode will be with head coach from Eastern Oregon University, Brian Valentine, fresh off his time as assistant coach and recruiting coordinator at Lower Columbia Community College. An episode that's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Talk some recruiting, talk some transfer portal stuff. We get to dive into all of it. Pretty excited to have him on. Big thank you to our sponsors, Max BP, the #1 training tool on the market. Also, Frost Gear and Heavy Swing. Go check all those guys out. Safeguard out of the Tri-Cities for any of our gear that we give away or we might even sell some out here soon. They make it and do an amazing job. Check out Top Tier Sports if you're looking for a summer baseball program, tournament to go to, or your summer program's looking for a tournament to go to. Go check them out. If you need a place in the weekend to play 3 or 4 games, go check their website. They're all over the Pacific Northwest where they will be hosting games. Also announced today on the Twitter, X, our Washington State Baseball Coaches Association. Our clinic will be February 7th and 8th here in Ellensburg, Washington at Central Washington University. Same setup as last year, and as you all were there, it was awesome, and what a fun weekend of talking baseball. Anybody that attends the Coaches Social on Friday night, the Fungo Banner will be buying your first drink, so check that out. Also, go to the website, go to all of our socials for the link. Go to allstatebaseball.com for the link to get signed up for the clinic. If you're one of the first 20 coaching staffs to get signed up for the clinic, here in January, we will be getting a link to a live episode recording of the Pacific Northwest Fungo Banner with question and answer from the audience session at the end of it. So kind of an incentive for you guys to get signed up early now, often. Check out this speaking lineup we have. Kim Cox, DeSales High School. Our state championship panel will be Jason Jarrett, Mike Davidson, and Grant Richardson, some of the state championship coaches last year from the state of Washington. Eric Fiedler from Enumclaw High School. Nick Allen from Ridgefield. Darren Trainer from Lewiston. And we heard what you guys were asking. He's going to talk working with high school catchers. Elliot Cribby, the Eastlake High School head coach, talking pitching. Casey Adcox, retired coach from Sumner. Mike Davidson from Overlake, and Mike Olson from Bonnie Lake, talking some outfield play. Don't get that a lot at some of the clinics, so we're covering all the bases and everything. So go check that out. Go get signed up. Follow our socials, and also, like I said, we'll be buying the first drink Friday night, and we will also be offering a free live show to the first 20 coaching staffs who get signed up. Okay, that's enough for me. I've talked way too much. Let's go ahead and bring on Brian Valentine, head coach of Eastern Oregon. All right, Fungo Banter fans, we are back with another guest for the Fungo Banter family. Pretty excited to have him on. We're heading to Eastern Oregon, and we're having Brian Valentine, the head coach of Eastern Oregon University, on the podcast. Thank you for taking time tonight to join the Fungo Banter.
No, fired up to be on it. Thanks for having me.
We're super fired up and thankful that you said yes to coming on with us. And right away, a hard-hitting question. What's your favorite Fungo?
Oh yeah, I got to go Devo. Yeah, they do it right, and I like the way it feels, and I find a lot of barrels, so I'm going with the Devo. Yeah, pretty easy for me.
I love it.
Yeah.
So talk us through your journey in baseball. You know, what got you into the game and your path through your playing days, and then, you know, getting into coaching. What made you decide to become a coach and where you're at now at Eastern Oregon?
Yeah, no, I think the sport definitely runs through the blood in the family. I have a cousin that's in the game coaching at the Division I level. My uncle coached, my grandpa, He was involved in the community on the baseball stadium in Vancouver. So I think just growing up around it, and then kind of being blessed to have a lot of good coaches growing up and throughout my career. And I kind of knew early, it's actually my sophomore year of high school. I was at the time girlfriend's house, and she wanted to go to UCLA to be a lawyer, and her family asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, well, I want to be a college baseball coach. And they looked at me kind of funny and didn't really understand that answer. And so I kind of always knew I had an interest of getting in, and was fortunate enough to get started at Linfield after I was done playing. And thankful to Stan Manley for giving me my first coaching job. And so kind of got in and didn't really want to give up the opportunity. So I just kind of plugged away, and was fortunate to be surrounded with some really good coaches and really good mentors, and kind of pave the path and guide me in the right way. And just kind of knew it was a passion of mine, and wanted to kind of do it for a living. So I had to figure it out, and we're still trying to figure it out, but we're still here. So.
Well, BV, talk about a lot of transitions, right? And I think just about all of us on this call right now have made JUCO to 4-year transitions, not only as players but also as coaches. And what's that process been like? Kind of going back to you as a player from Yakima to Linfield to now going from Lower Columbia to Eastern Oregon. What's that transition like? Where do you kind of see yourself in your kind of progression in life now, as reflecting as a coach and a player, all that kind of coming full circle right now to getting your big job?
Yeah, I think, I think one, the transition as a player helped me when I made the transition to go from Linfield to Lower Columbia and move a couple years ago, and then obviously from Lower Columbia to Eastern. And through those kind of stops, I was able to lean on that just transition, and it was really different going from Yakima to Linfield, just from the academic side, the time, the pure baseball time, especially in the fall, and just kind of what's important, but still having baseball being obviously still important, but just different things that were asked of you at the 4-year level. And then I think I knew I wanted to get back to the 4-year level. I enjoy a lot of aspects about the 4-year level. I enjoy having the opportunity to build relationships with players for 4 years, project them over 4 years. But I really enjoyed the junior college level as well. I think it's a good level, great level even. And it's a different type of, I think every place kind of has a different type of kid and player and student, all in their own good way. Right. And so it was, I think relationships stay the same in terms of building the relationship, being my goal is to have a positive impact on the guys I coach, and that never changed at any place I was, but maybe how it was done and the time you had with them changed it at the levels. But I'm enjoying being back at the 4-year level, from the recruiting standpoint, the being with your guys for longer, kind of guiding them through that life of getting that degree and whatnot. So it's been some transitions for sure, but it's all been positive.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to take from a player that you can spend that period of 4 years, opposed to 2 years, and building that environment, and building that program. There's a lot of definitely plus sides to that,
Sure.
Coach. But one of the hard hitting questions I want to ask you tonight, we've seen this coming through college sports all across the board, from the Division I all the way down to the NAI level, but it's this transfer portal thing,
Sure.
We got players that are they're coming into programs, maybe they don't get along with the coach or assistant coach, or they think there's something better. How has that kind of affected your way you're going about your recruiting? How is that playing into it, the NAI, where you got a guy that comes in, he's all in day one, fall goes through, maybe his spring season isn't as where he thinks it needs to be. He feels like maybe he's worth a little bit more than what he's maybe putting out and on the field, that is, and thinking that, hey, I can be at the D1, D2 level. So how are you handling those as your coach, as the head coach there at Eastern, as well as your staff?
Yeah, I think first off, the portal has given us an opportunity to add another influx of players, be able to just have another avenue of getting players on your roster, from whether it's high school, you have the high school angle, you have the JUCO angle, and then you have the transfer angle now. And a lot of it before the portal was, people think that, if they win NAI, they don't have grades, right? And so I think that's changed a little bit too, where, maybe it's not always a situation where they're not academically ineligible at the Division I or wherever, the Division II. We're adding a Division II guy at the break that'll join us in January, and it wasn't because of grades. It wasn't because of he had a good experience. It was a long ways away from home and wanted to be closer to home and didn't quite like it like maybe he thought. So I think there's more. I think context matters. And I think you got to do your research just like you would on any other recruit. But I see it as a positive for us as another avenue to get players. And that's, I think, really something we've talked about as a staff, that that's an advantage for us. I think a lot more programs have more access to those guys in Division I baseball that decide not to be there anymore compared to before the transfer portal, just because they're more readily available and there's less barrier to entry, if you will. But I think all the things that you value as a staff, we value things that we want to have good dudes. We care about the makeup side. We want guys that are willing to work and not think everything's going to be handed to them, just like any other coach. But I think when you recruit guys and when you evaluate recruits and when you kind of go through all that, you still have to use those check marks for the transfer portal guy too, and evaluate it if it's a right fit for your program. So it's definitely a interesting time to navigate, but I think communication's key, and treating it very similar to how you would a JUCO player or a high school player in terms of your process of evaluating a recruit, if it's a fit or not, is also important. And you can kind of sift through some of that context that you're able to find out on why that guy might be available. So I see it overall as a benefit for college programs, for players. But yeah, there's some misguided players that, hey, I had a good freshman year. I think I can go play Division I baseball. I'm going to go to a junior college. And, if at the end of the day, if they don't want to be there, if they're not in it for the right reasons at that program, then hey, it's addition by subtraction most likely, and you got to get the right guys on the bus. And I think that's just part of the nature of it and whatnot. But I think also, educating on the guy, finding out why that's the case, and then understanding their why and talking about it, and that communication side is huge. And if it ends up, hey, this isn't the best for you, hey, we support you and wish you the best of luck. But I think communication is pretty huge. And I think even at our level, you have to have a constant communication with your current roster. I don't think we're as I don't think, because we don't have a portal at the NAI level where it's like guys are just kind of they're just another guy trying to email a school and get an opportunity, where we're still vulnerable to a certain degree. But I don't know unless their guys are posting numbers, I don't know how many people are combing through rosters. You know what I mean? So I think that's interesting, but also understanding understanding your roster too is important, and it goes back to developing relationships with your players. I think if you have good relationships, you can communicate, but also providing a good experience for guys too. I think that's important where, I don't know if coach, there's also a time where coaches are at fault too, right? And it's not the best environment for the kid, and that's okay sometimes. And so I think, here at Eastern, we're trying to create the best student athlete experience possible that we can. Our staff, which I'm fired up about our staff that we were able to build here. We talk about it all the time. Hey, we wouldn't have jobs if we didn't have players. So we're here to serve our players. And so every decision that we make at Eastern, it is with our players at the forefront. And I think, hey, does this positively impact our guys, or does it negatively impact our guys on a whole? Then we can make that decision. And I think if you look, for me, it's easier to kind of sift through when you look at it through those lens.
There's a lot to unpack there, Coach BV.
Yeah, I kind of got long. I apologize.
That's okay. Hey, it's okay. It's okay. This is your platform, and you're here to share it. I think where we start is that, like, we think about us as junior college to 4-year players, and I think at the time as a junior college player, you're thinking about what's next, right? What's my next 4 year? Obviously, you have lofty goals. High school kid, you have lofty goals, right? This is where I think I want to be at certain ages, and that might change from time to time. As a senior, I know that generally changes for most guys. But then you're a junior college player, and you're thinking kind of the same way. You're thinking about the next school. But then when you get to your 4-year school, you kind of feel like you have it figured out, right? This is where I'm going to finish. This is where my career is going to end. And this is us in our careers. And I think that's what's changed a little bit now, is that when we got to our 4-year schools, there was some freshmen around us. There was obviously transfers. There's a bunch of different players within there. But everyone at that point in time had the vibe that this is where I was going to end up, right? This is where I was going to finish my career. There was the occasional, freshman that would transfer to a junior college to try to get to the next level. But there was no avenues for those guys at that point in time to be able to move on to anything higher than that, whether that's D3 to D2, D2 to D1. It just really didn't occur that often without that transition to the junior college level. Now that it's open, now it's out there, and there's cases of this, right? I think not that the water's poisoned, right? It's not necessarily every single person, but I think everyone in the back of their mind understands that, if I produce, if I have a good year, that I could potentially move on to better. They're not necessarily settled in their minds that this is it, right? That this is where I'm always going to be. I'm going to be stuck here, quote unquote, stuck here. Even though they're having a positive experience, that they can still have the opportunity to go to the next thing, right? So you mentioned that having the relationships and stuff with your guys, but we'll start here. Like, if you have that guy that is posting numbers that are top of the conference, all West region, national numbers, right? Does that conversation sway from your end to that guy being able to go to the next thing? Or do you let that guy present that potential opportunity himself as that conversation goes?
Sure. And I think I lean more of them presenting that, but to pursue, right? And that's where I have no issue helping them in that. If it's a situation where, because I think about it like this, right? Obviously we have scholarship, we have athletic scholarship at our place and at the NIA level. If there is something out there that they are being approached by that is so-called better situation, and when I talk about better situation, maybe it's more of a life-changing scholarship amount for their family, or there's NIL involved, and that's where I have a hard time of saying, well, no, you shouldn't look at that, because it's something we can't offer at Eastern Oregon. Currently, we don't have NIL, and that's different. And I think that's where you elevate. You're kind of in a different sphere, if you will. But I think, having the relationship, having the transparency, and having the communication lines with your player of like, hey, I want to test, because I think it's for us at the NAI level, with not having a physical portal to go into. You're just a guy that's looking to leave and emailing coaches. So, I think that's different than the guy that gets into the portal that's at a Division I, Division II, or Division III. Okay, because there's a database for you, right? And I think that's where we can be of assistance if it's the right situation, and it's something that they've earned. But I think it's more so them driving the conversation, if you will, where selfishly we want our great players to stay here, right? When you put that work in and whatnot, but recognizing kind of where you're at in the scheme of things, I think is important too. And I think that's what I mean by kind of those life-changing things that maybe you can't offer at your institution. And that's just
and I think I agree with you on that, and just there not being a physical portal. But I think a lot of what the misconception out there of what the portal actually is, right? When a guy enters a name into the portal as a D3, D2, D1 player, it is literally your name listed with your school attached at your previous school. And I think a lot of guys out there feel like it's this like field level or special profile type thing that is like an engagement for people to go out and find you, right? But literally it's just your name, right? So as a coach, and we went through this too, and I'm sure that you've experienced this to different levels too, having your connections and what you guys did at Lower Columbia, but you hear about a name and then you do your research, right? Sure. And so it doesn't really matter if you see that guy listed in a portal or the kid reaches out to you, a summer coach reaches out to you, some type of connection with that guy reaches out to you, but you hear about the name no matter what, right? And I think for us and for you and where you've been, like, you only really get excited about a guy if there's some flashy numbers, there's some flashy highlights, some flashy something there that draws your attention, right? That the name attached to a school is not as important as the numbers or the performance, unless you had a previous relationship with the kid, or he played summer ball with someone that you know about. But in general, like, if guys post stuff, right, like, they're not going to be hidden, right? The top players in the NIA West, right? Like, what's your guys' conference name? I'm sorry, I'm blanking.
Cascade Collegiate Conference.
The CCC. Yeah. The best guys in the CCC are going to be posted out there as first teamers at the freshman of the year of all those different type of things. So regardless if that guy's in the portal or not, like, that information is being listed somewhere in a social media post, in the CCC website, or somewhere where someone can find it, right? So even if there's not like something luxurious to be able to be offered to those guys, right, their names don't go unnoticed, right? And
sure, 100%.
So I guess, like, from that standpoint, like, I if you can't offer more scholarship, if you've already maxed out in scholarship, or if you've given them the offer that you feel like is deserving of that position, and the kid doesn't have NIL stuff, right? Are you going to hold back a guy that has it? I'm not going to talk Division II. I honestly feel like Division II NAIA are pretty lateral in that sense.
And I agree.
But Division I opportunities, like, are you going to hold a guy that's getting a scholarship offer that's relative to Eastern Oregon for an opportunity to move on to the Division I level?
No, I would say not. If there's an offer in place, or even if there's a guy that, hey, coach, I kind of want to test the waters. Okay, well then let's talk about how we can do that, right? And I think I just think that's the place we're at in the scheme of things, and just where everyth's at right now in college baseball. I think you have to be able to have those conversations, and sometimes they're hard conversations for you, the coach, you, the adult. But that's that's why you recruit. That's why you And quite frankly, if you're getting guys good enough to be at Division I level and get scholarship at the Division I level with the rosters shrinking in the future, to me that's bargaining chips to get the next guy to do it. And I think that's something we're taking a look at, we're evaluating, and we have no issue playing a part in that. But the conversation has to be like, is it the right situation? Because the one thing I will say is, this conference had 3 Major League Baseball draft picks last year, and NAIA as a whole is second to Division I baseball in draft picks in Major League Baseball draft. So if the kid, is the kid a freshman, is he a sophomore, is he a junior, is he a senior? Obviously not a senior, but like senior with a 5th year, or what? A redshirt junior going into his senior year, or whatever it is. I think that stuff matters too, because the next we are the next level. And I actually told a recruit that today, where he's thinking about junior college and thinking about the 4-year, and we talked about, you just got to know what you want your experience to be and all that good stuff. But I said the great thing about this is we are the next level. So when you go to a junior college, we're recruiting the guys at the junior colleges you're talking about. You get the chance to be at the next level right off the bat and work from there with the resources we have in place, with the 4-year experience, with all of the things that come with the 4-year level, and being at Eastern Oregon specifically, which I think, we have some really cool things going and cooking. But I think some of that stuff matters too. If it's a junior that, hey, well, is Division I baseball next level for you, or is professional baseball next level for you? And even if it's indie ball, even if it's, do you have a better chance of posting numbers as a senior in a really competitive conference, and maybe thinking professional baseball, because that's our next level, right? That's how we think about it. And so I think that the age plays a factor in that as well. But I think, there needs to be, we would be willing to, actively participate in some of that if the situation comes. But again, conversation, relationship, and transparency, and recruiting, that's why you recruit every day.
How much, Brian, how much do you think that social media plays into this factor of all this? I mean, I feel like as things have changed with TikTok and Instagram, like Kelly was saying there, of course, when you enter the portal, it's just a name in their school, right? But it just seems like, granted, we have, the Power 5 and all these big names. Of course, you've seen ESPN the last few days, everybody's into the portal and these announcements with college football and everything coming to an end. But how much is that really playing into a lot of these kids just putting their name out there so that, maybe they do look for that next, Jake Paul mentality? You have all these followers, and you got, millions of dollars coming in your pocket because you got a name that's out there.
Yeah, I think it definitely influences it, and it's not always. Sometimes it's a positive, but it's not always a positive, right? And I think, and you hear this a lot where, especially when I was at Lower Columbia, when we're helping place guys and we're having those conversations. Well, this guy's here, and I raked off him in high school. So if he's there, I can be there. And I God's honest truth, I was that guy. There was a guy that I absolutely raked in high school. He went to the University of Portland. That guy couldn't get me out. And I go, why? How is he at the University of Portland? This guy, he can't get me out, and I'm going to Yakima, whatever it is. And then when I got into coaching and got into recruiting, I go, okay, yeah, no, I understand why he was at the University of Portland. It's not about 16 at bat, 16 at singular at bats, right? Against in the high school season, it's a bigger body of work. But I think there's some of that where the social media allows guys access to more information, and to their disservice in terms of just maybe thinking their reality is a little different than it maybe is. And like Kelly said, there's been success stories. So when guys kind of levitate to hey, that's kind of my game, or I play similar to that guy, or hey, I'm a undersized middle infielder that has a little bit of sneaky juice, I can do that, right? And then when they have, so I think there's a little bit of that, and I think there's influence, but I think there's influence in a positive way too, as well. So I do think it plays a part in it, and I think that's just the day and age we're in.
I think it's crazy too that like you talk about recruiting needs, right? And you've been to, now 3 places that having a lead role in the recruiting side, and the needs of your team kind of vary year to year, right? And whether you're junior college, Division III, Division I, NAIA, like it doesn't matter how good a player is. Like there comes a time where you just can't take a guy, right? So even if that guy is more than capable of being able to move on, he might not find a spot because there's no one else looking for what he has to offer, right? So it's such a wild thing to be able to be that small school guy that enters the portal and to have success, right? I think that they're all going to find a school, right? Whether that's lateral or upward, it just kind of varies on the guy, right? But to guarantee it's going to work out for this guy when it didn't work out for that guy is crazy. But I guess in your conversations, and you probably haven't gone through a ton of them yet, but as you kind of foreshadow that, like, how do you handle that communication throughout that process? And this is one that I always kind of struggled with a little bit. Like, if a guy is interested in moving on, do you cut ties with them immediately? Oh, that guy doesn't want to be here, so, leave, fine, bye. I don't want to hear from you ever again.
Right.
Or do you handle it of a more strict set of like timelines of, hey, if it gets past this date, you got to make a decision. I guess to put you on the spot without having gone through this yet, like, how do you view that kind of that process going for the end of the year and how you handle a guy, or if you want to remove yourself from it, like, how do you think that people should handle this as a player with their communication with coaches?
Well, I think the communication from the player side, I think if you feel like you can be open and upfront and explain your motives, really, I think that's the best way. But I mean, I understand that if you say it before February, before you've hung numbers, and that could be problematic, or, you got to have a feel for who you're playing for and just what the setup is. But yeah, we're a little premature on that. But I will say this: I hope we have good enough players that want to think that might have those options, because that means we're doing something right, And I think I'm not saying it's a welcome conversation, but is it? Odds are, if you have a handful of those guys, and your culture's right and all that stuff, I would like to think that maybe it's more so because they want to play at the highest level, right? And I think obviously you're going to have guys that are dissatisfied and just don't like the school, but I think those conversations are a little different. But yeah, I think it's a great question of just how do you navigate it in terms of, do you give them a soft deadline? The question I think of to ask them is, okay, do you think looking out for my program, is it in my best interest to recruit your position and replace you? And then you find some truth there, and if it is, then okay, then get to work and go get a guy in the avenues that you have. Or, I think that might be able to give you some. Obviously, it's not the whole truth, or it's not the end all be all, but it at least gives you maybe something to navigate a little bit. Because I think they might speak some truth there. But yeah, I think we're still preliminary. Maybe ask me in 7 months. We'll see. But naturally, luckily maybe I shouldn't say luckily, but we're old, so we lose a lot. So all my guys are like, I'm replacing everybody. Basically, I mean, we lose like almost half of the roster. They're old. They're graduating. So I think maybe in a year's time, year and a half, maybe I'll have a better answer for you. But yeah, I think the objective, perfect world answer is probably that, the coach gal.
To add to that, I think really you hit the nail on the head there, Brian. I mean, it's just communication, right? I mean, I think, and of course, I'm not a collegiate coach anywhere, but the thing is that you gotta. It's no different than running a business. You got to communicate to your
Right.
staff. They need to know the roles. You have your sit downs, your reviews at the end of the year. Everybody wants to know where they fit in and where they're best added to the team. And if they're sitting out there trying to figure out, then other options are going to start coming, maybe, or start thinking about different options. But that's the thing. It's just like anything, like a marriage. You can't just, your wife can't just sit there and assume, or you assume of her or him or whatever it is. You got to be open in communication, and you develop that healthy environment that everybody wants to be a part of it. You have a winning tradition. It just think about programs that have done really, really, really well over the last 20 years. Why do kids want to go there? Because they win. Part of it too is their facilities are up, top notch, and their swag and all this, social media and the ESPN coverages and all that kind of stuff, and Sports Illustrated, they love all that stuff. But the thing is that if you can present that even at the NAIA level, you can give them a Division I experience, like you're saying.
Sure.
It's just all how you want to present it as your staff, and then what your school is willing to do too, right? Financially, for your facilities, and what can you add to every year to what you have there, so that you can keep players saying, I want to go to LeGrand. It's not like a big party town, big, town USA kind of place to go, but there's, as you build that, kids are going to say, yeah, I want to go to Eastern. That place rocks. Not only their staff's legit, they know what they're doing. They're putting guys into the pro ball, but man, their facilities are top notch. And I think that's just what it comes down to, is that are you willing to put the work in? It's like kind of what you're saying there. And so,
and I think, no, 100%. And those are all the goals and whatnot. I think I try to work on this every day, and I'm not always the best at it, but I think when you talk about that communication side, you got to be okay with the communication that makes you uncomfortable as a coach, as a leader, as a boss, right? And like you gotta be okay with that, and kind of learn how to manage that. And that's something that, again, I'm not perfect at it, but it's something that I think about, like, hey, it's sometimes it's not always going to go your way, and how are you going to navigate that, and how are you going to support and whatnot. And I think, that kind of plays a role into it too. And I think the last thing I'll kind of say too is, when you're having these conversations with the guys, and the guy that wants to maybe seek opportunities, what's the why, right? And then if the why comes back to all these reasons of, like, I always think about, do you care about the right stuff? Are you worried about the right stuff, right? And so, and every place and every program has that list of right stuff, you know what I mean? And I think if those answers are kind of fraying away from the stuff that matters at your place, well, then maybe it's time to go your separate ways. And then maybe it's like, hey, you enjoyed 3 seasons with him, he was great for you, but he's more worried about this, that, and the other thing, and we're worried about this. Maybe it's not a fit. You know what I mean? Just like you would be in the recruiting process, that you have a kid on campus, and I always ask guys, what are you looking for? What's important to you? And then you can kind of see how they align with your program values. And if their values aren't lining up with your program, then shoot, maybe there's some addition by subtraction, not in a negative way, not in an egregious way, but sometimes that course plays out too. And I think, I try to think about that as well when thinking about navigating this stuff.
Talking about the communication piece and taking this to another level, have you had the conversations with maybe a high school kid who says, what, I want to come there, but what happens if I want to leave there? Or like, if they can move on from your university, is that even a conversation had now?
We do. Yeah, we've had them. And I think when you go, especially in the Northwest, and I think Kelly can attest to this, there's a lot of guys that they want to play Division I baseball. They want to do this, they want to do that. And they think that, going to Division I baseball is accessible from the junior college level. right? But what I tell kids now, you can do everything you want to do at a junior college at Eastern Oregon with better resources, better support, and a 4-year experience. So post numbers, and then we'll talk about it. If you want to post number, if you want to come here and use Eastern Oregon as a platform and post numbers, let's have that conversation. But you got to post numbers. And so if you post numbers, my thinking is if that guy posts numbers, you're a better team because you have a better player, right? And so then maybe, hey, he's here for 2 years and understands, hey, no, I love it. Or, hey, maybe I want to be here and pro ball's my next goal, not so much Division I, or like, hey, I really found a pathway that I really want to stay academically and I can get it here and play baseball. And maybe, you just never know what time can do with some of that. But I think being closed off to it is not always the advantageous thing that you can do. And so I look at it like that. But we've had that conversation with a lot of recruits. And we'll see how it pans out. But I think, but I also do say, hey, but I don't want you committing to Eastern Oregon thinking we're going to shop you. You earn it. You put up numbers. You commit because you believe in this place. You believe in that you're here to make a difference. You're here to, create a legacy and build a program, and you trust the staff and that'll develop you as a player and a person. And you're doing it because you want to be here and you can see yourself being here. And if whatever comes, and you're committed to helping us create a championship culture. Mm-hmm. So I kind of tell them, don't commit here if you think I'm just going to make calls for you after your freshman year. You know what I mean? You gotta love the place and love the staff and want to really leave this program better than you found it. And I think that's what we're looking for when we're bringing this next group of guys in, of guys that want to run to opportunity, run to be a lasting legacy of this program for, if it's a JUCO guy here for 2 years, if it's a transfer guy, here for a year or 3 years, or a high school guy here for 4 years, or whatever it is, we want guys eager to make an impact and kind of create a legacy, if you will, as cheesy as that sounds. But I think, we're the land of opportunity, and we want guys that want opportunity and want to work for it and all that good stuff.
Now entering from the bullpen,
well, that wraps up part one with Brian Valentine, head coach at Eastern Oregon University. Hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, please share it on your social medias. Please get on, rate and review the podcast. I know that part two is going to be just as good if you can't wait for that one. Check it out on our YouTube channel where I will put the whole interview in its entirety. I'm not going to cut that up anymore, but we still will release part two on your audio airwaves. Big thank you to Max BP, a big thank you to Safeguard, and also Top Tier Sports as well. And like I said in the intro, our link is live to get signed up for your Washington State Baseball Coaches Association Clinic. Even if you're not from Washington State and you want to come listen to some great speakers and some great headliners along the way, it's just going to be a fun weekend of talking baseball, February 7th and 8th here in Ellensburg, Washington at Central Washington University. Hotels and coaches' social information will be out soon. Don't forget, the Fungo banner will be buying the first drink at the Coaches Social. And also, if you get signed up now on our website, the first 20 coaching staffs that get signed up for the clinic will get a link for probably going to happen in January to a live show with question and answers of the Pacific Northwest Fungo Banner podcast. It's going to be kind of a fun opportunity for us, the very first time for everybody doing it. So thank you again. Please like, share, follow, do all the things we've asked to help just spread the word of the Fungo Banner and this episode. Pretty excited. Thank you again to Coach for coming on. And we'll be back next week with part two with Brian Valentine from Eastern Oregon University. Until next time, take care of one another.